Cruella De Vil, Cruella De Vil. If she doesn't scare you, Cruella De Vil. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video we are doing part 2 of Simplicity 9342, which is the Cruella De Vil jacket. Now, before we get started, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button, and also turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that second part, which we will be sewing the sleeve band, the under collar, and also I will show you how to attach sleeve heading to keep from your sleeves collapsing on you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into this part 2 of this tutorial. Alright, so for this tutorial, it will be all voiceover simply because I'm not sure what happened, but the audio did not record for this. So I'm just going to do a voiceover for this. So for this one, you will need pattern piece number 5, which is your under collar, pattern piece number 6, your sleeve, and then pattern piece number 7, which is your sleeve band, and then as I mentioned in the first part, you will need sleeve heading if you want to do this. Like I said, that I am using fleece for my sleeve heading, which is 6 inches long by 2 inches wide. So go ahead and get your pattern pieces so we could go ahead and get started. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have interfaced your upper collar and your sleeve band. Make sure you interface those two. So move those aside so we could get started with our sleeve, which is pattern piece number 6. And make sure that you have transferred all your notches and your dots on your pattern pieces as well. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is grab pattern piece number 6, which is your sleeve. And what we're going to do is go ahead and make gathering stitches along your sleeve cap. Now, I am going to be using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance on mine to create the first row of gathering, and then I'll use 1/4 of an inch in order to create the second one, and then that way I do not have to use the seam ripper to rip seams out later on. So that's what I'm going to do, but it's a personal preference. Now what you're going to do is, with right sides together, you're going to fold it over, make sure that you pin at that notch. Pin at the top, and then pin at the bottom, and then you want to pin the length of your underarm seams. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, now that I have it pinned using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, and at the end then press your seams open. Also, when you make your gathering stitches, you want to gather in between the notches. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now that I have went ahead and sewn my underarm seams with right sides together, I went ahead and turned it out and pressed my seams open as well. Go ahead and move your sleeves off to the side. And then you want to grab pattern piece number 7, which is your sleeve bands. So go ahead and grab pattern piece number 7, your sleeve bands. Alright, so with your sleeve bands, you're going to turn your sleeve bands with the right side up. You would take the left over your right. So if you look how the curved edge is, you will see that you have a notch at the top, a notch at the bottom, and then a notch at both sides. So what you're going to do is take the left side over the right side and then pin at that knot. So left over right. I'm turning it here so you can see, and then pin at that notch, pin at the top, and then pin at the bottom. And if you need another pin, you can use another pin somewhere to hold everything together, but you want to make sure that your seams is aligning. Now that I have it pinned together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, backstitch at the beginning and at the end, and then press your seams open. Okay, so now that I have sewn the sleeve band together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I went ahead and pressed it open. What you want to do is, with wrong sides together and seam allowance together, you want to have it with wrong sides together. You're going to fold the band along the fold line and then press, making sure that it's even, and you press the seams down, and then you want to baste the upper edge, the upper raw edge of your sleeve band. So go ahead and do that now. Now, if you do not want to baste it at the very top around, you can just press it like I am doing. I will not be basting it, but I'm just going to press it. You can do that as well. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now that I have went ahead and gave my sleeve band a good press, I made sure that the seams are aligned. Go ahead and grab your sleeve, which is pattern piece number 6. And what you want to do is slide your sleeve right side out, holding your garment wrong side out, and slide your sleeves over your sleeve band. Now you want to make sure that the bottom of your sleeve is facing the exact same side of your sleeve band. So that's why I turned it around, because you want the clean finish facing the right side and the unfinished seams to be facing the left side. So with right sides together, you want to match up your underarm seams. So go ahead and match up your underarm seams as well as your notches. And then you want to definitely pin all the way around. So I'm going to match up my notches here, match up my underarm seam here. Then I'm going to go ahead and match up my notch, which is right here. And then I'm going to pin all the way around my sleeve and sleeve band. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now that I have it pinned using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, backstitch at the beginning and at the end, and sew your sleeves to your sleeve band all the way around. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now that I have my sleeves attached to my sleeve band, it's pressed open. I'm just going to turn it out and make sure that I match up the underarm seams and the notches as well. All I'm doing is basically creating that sleeve band that you see on the pattern. Alright, and that's what it looks like so far. Just turn it up. And then you could go to the iron and give it a good press if you would like. Alright, now the next thing you're going to do is go ahead and attach your sleeve to your jacket. So what you want to do is go ahead and grab your jacket, And with right sides together, you want to attach your underarm seams. Now, one note that I want to make is make sure that when you attach your sleeve to the armscye portion of your jacket, you are matching up the notches. So I have a notch right there. So if it's a one notch, you want to make sure that you're aligning that one notch like you see me doing here. And then you should align the two notches. Now the two notches symbolize the back portion of your jacket. So you want to align that as well and pin. And then if you want, you can pin along the bottom portion of your jacket. So put a pin here. And then there is a dot at the top portion of your jacket. Now what you want to do is go ahead and flip your jacket over like so. And then what you want to do is you want to pull up a little bit of your gather to kind of gather your sleeve into, or ease I should say, ease your sleeve into your armscye. So just go ahead and pull up a little bit of your ease if you haven't done so already. And then you have that dot. That dot matches up to your shoulder seams. So make sure you match that dot up to your shoulder seams and pin. Now the only thing that's left for you to do is go ahead and make sure that you are not creating any puckers or tucks or a lot of gathers in your sleeve cap. You just want to ease it in. So what you're going to do is go ahead and pin the rest of your sleeves all the way around. So go ahead and do that now. Now that I have it pinned all the way around, starting at my underarm seam using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and so all the way around. Go ahead and do that now. Alright, so now that I attach my sleeve to my jacket, it's looking amazing, and I'm going to clip this loose thread here. Make sure you clip all your loose threads when you have some. You don't want to have your jacket just doing anything. So go ahead and grab your sleeve headings, and I'm going to show you how to put these together. Now I will not be using shoulder pads like the instruction says. I'm just going to use sleeve heading, which is fleece. So what I did was fold it in half, and what I'm going to do is make a snip in the center. So I folded it in half and made a snip in the center, and what you're going to do is make sure that snip is lined up with your shoulder seam. So just fold it in half again, make your little slit or snip, and then match that little slit or snip to your shoulder seam. Now you're going to pin the raw edges together like you see me doing here. So just pin at the shoulder seam. And then you just want to pin the rest of it down. You're only pinning within the seam allowance, which is that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then go ahead and pin the other side as well. Now using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, you're going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and you're just sewing within that seam allowance. You are not creating another stitch. So just sew within that seam allowance using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to do that for both sleeves. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I sewn my sleeve heading within the seam allowance on both of my sleeves. Now, if you notice that if you try it on, you'll notice that it stabilized your sleeve area. Your sleeve is not collapsing or anything. So what you want to do is, if you grab your hem, all you need to do is press your sleeve into shape. So just put your hem where your sleeve is, and you're going to take it to the ironing station and make sure you press that sleeve into shape. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I pressed my sleeve into shape, and this is what it's looking like. I pressed it down towards the sleeve. Make sure that your seam allowance is pressing down as well. So if you notice that stabilized my sleeve, so it's not collapsing. If you look on the other side of your jacket, if you have one that you have not done, you'll notice that if you put it on, it's collapsing a little bit versus if you add a sleeve heading like I done here. Alright, so I went ahead and did both sleeves with the sleeve heading. I pressed it down using my tailoring hem. This is what the jacket is looking like so far. It's looking amazing and beautiful. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and move my jacket out of the way. And then I'm going to grab my under collar, which is pattern piece number 5. Make sure you have interfaced both of those pieces as well. And then what you want to do is, with right sides together, you want to stitch the center back seams. So you have 3 notches right there. So pin at your notch, pin at the top, as well as pin at the bottom. And then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and then press your seams open. Alright, so now that I have my under collar sewn with right sides together, I press the seams open. So go ahead and grab your jacket. And what you want to do is clip your neck edge of the jacket to your stay stitching along that curve. If you have not done so already, go ahead and do that. Just the neck edge of the jacket, not the facing whatsoever, just the neck edge you want to clip to the stay stitching, but do not clip through it. Once you do that with right sides together, you want to attach your under collar to your neck edge. So make sure you match up that center back seam and pin. Make sure you match up the notch that's there as well, that single notch, and pin. Match up the single notch on the other side as well and pin. Now you will have a dot. That dot matches up to your shoulder seams. So go ahead and match that dot to your shoulder seams and pin. And then that dot right there matches up where you have that slit. So first you want to pin that first dot at your shoulder seam. So go ahead and pin there. And then that second dot, you want to pin where that second dot is near the reinforcement stitch that you made earlier. Pin there. And then you want to match up the notch that you have there as well. So make sure you are matching up your dots and your notches as well. So go ahead and do that now on both sides. Alright, so now that I have it pinned, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm going to back stitch at the beginning, sew to one end, stop at that dot, pivot, and then sew off to that second dot. And then after I do that, what I'm going to do is flip it over and do the same thing. But what you want to do is make sure you stop at that dot. Keep your needle down and then pivot and then go to that second dot. Flip it over and do the same thing to the other side. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I have attached my under collar to my jacket. Amazing, amazing, amazing. This is what it's currently looking like. Make sure that you press your seam allowance towards your collar and give it a good press. This is what it looks like, just to give you an example of what your jacket should be looking like and taking shape. Now that is all for this part, which is part 2 of the Cruella De Vil jacket. You have to come back in order to see part 3 of this jacket coming soon. All right, well, there you have it. That is part 2 of this tutorial. I know it was a lot, but I hope you are right there with me. You're hanging in there with me. So there's only one part left, which is the last part where we will be sewing our lining together. Also attach the upper collar to the lining and of course close it out by attaching the lining to the jacket and finishing off our sleeves. So that is a lot for part 3 as well. So I hope you stay tuned for part 3, and I will also put photos in part 3. So until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So I'll catch you in the next video, and always keep sewing.